What annoys you way more than it should? The sounds of people. Just take a moment and listen to all the noise everyone is making. The heavy breathing, the chewing, the typing, the dragging of feet on the ground, the rustling of packaging. It drives me insane when I notice it all. Loud chewing makes me wanna pull all my teeth out slowly with pliers. There is a guy who sits behind me at work. He is at least 50 years old, and he couldn't chew with his mouth closed to save his life. And his food always seems to be wet. Wet food. I don't know what it is, but it sloshes around in his mouth and I have to leave the room when he starts eating. I don't think that would be quieter. This guy I worked with farted all day long and played with action figures at his desk. That just about did it for me. Haha, we are messed up in the head when people contradict cardinal directions in reference to their own location and another. For instance, Dallas is north of Austin, and for some reason it bugs me when people say I'm in Dallas and I'm going up to Austin this weekend. I know that cardinal directions are arbitrary and maybe a more accurate issue to have with this would have something to do with elevation, but I'm annoyingly aware of my internal compass, and it bugs me. Dallas is north of Austin, I'm in Dallas, and I'm going up to Austin this weekend. Bold of you to assume they aren't just taking the long route. For me it's always going down to X, or coming up from Y. Going is down, and coming is up. IDK where I picked this up. I grew up in Austin, but I can't remember what my peers would say growing up when somebody constantly misspells or mispronounces words. Of course I understand what they mean, but it makes me cringe so hard. It was always a gamble as a kid when you pronounce the word for the first time that you've only ever read. I remember reading out loud in class and pronouncing stoic for the first time as stoic. As a kid, this still happens periodically thanks to learning about new things on the internet. I have a coworker that I pair up with to give customer demos and he always says across instead of across, and it's like nails on a chalkboard to my brain whenever he says it. When people say wary instead of weary. My coworker pronounced doppelganger as doppelganger, and I just can't. My brother not cutting his pancakes. Cutting pancakes? I just roll them up and eat it with my hands, and so do everyone I've ever seen eating pancakes. Need to clarify, American style and European style pancakes are nothing alike. European style pancakes are served one at a time, are thinner and contain less eggs, meaning they can be rolled up and eaten that way. American style are thicker, served stacked on top of each other, and would typically tear if you tried to roll them, unless the cook was stingy with his eggs. Unless you smother them in syrup and wait until you can eat your pancake mush without a knife. 0. Oh, I have never seen a single person do that ever. You must be fun at parties. I'm sorry, I don't agree with you. My disagreement doesn't mean I'm not fun at parties. Fun thing two of my friends like to do to me when a situation arises where they might say you must be fun at parties is sing this little ditty. Every party needs a pooper, that why we invited you. Most notably when I call out their BS or insist on a rule check while playing a game happens every now and then. Never do it to each other, even though the one is way worse about rule checks. Every time a rule came up that didn't benefit him, he would try to challenge it. Just makes me so GD mad. Yeah, I'm not fun at parties for many other reasons. Idiots who say wake up while trying to make an argument. There is just something about that kind of illegitimate and unfounded self-righteousness that makes me want to kick them in the face. Also, think about it. Comes off like I don't know how to defend my stance, so you do it for me. Often immediately precedes anecdotal evidence and pseudoscience. I had to do remote training for my most recent job and the speaker would constantly get annoyed when no one was responding to her questions at 7 in the morning, and I learned that I have a deep burning hatred for anyone saying wake up in any context. There's never a good time. You must hate bring me to life then. When people are unnecessarily rude to waiters, salespeople, nurses, etc. For the sake of everyone's safety, I left the security industry and became an Uber Eats driver. Because of this exactly, I still remember the faces of my worst offenders. Also, whenever people on Reddit say something along the lines of when people are unnecessarily rude to waiters, salespeople, nurses, etc. Comio N it's BN10 minutes I'm WAITNGF4MY Buagia. Says some of my friends, while losing 2 hours per day on Snapchat and funny Facebook videos. People who just keep talking over you loudly during an argument. But if I talk louder than you, it must help you understand better. Oh, I understand now. You are really convincing. Combining this with clapping between every word gives me cancer. I hate it when people clap whilst speaking to make them more correct. It's so annoying. It also makes you more correct. Maybe, I said maybe y'all can't hear me, son. Maybe you can't hear my words properly. Nice mannered kid, just a little on the dumb side. Let me Google that for I and other passive aggressive and sometimes not so passive ways of shaming people on Reddit to ask a question. Like I get that some things are easily Googleable and maybe people are angry about said question as being lazy, but I much prefer a world where people who have the same question can come across that thread and actually have an answer without having to Google it themselves, and more so that perhaps a conversation can be started around said question. It just seems overly aggressive to people who are merely inquisitive. When someone says that's your opinion when the topic of discussion isn't opinion or belief but actual fact. I've heard people listen to people talk about the science of climate change and say, well, that's your opinion. Just an FYI, and because you deserve to know, the account you responded to just copied pasted this person's comment. It's sad. They just need to look at India, China, or basically every big city to see pollution. Well, that's just like your opinion, man. I hate when people tell me how I'm feeling. Like if my dad says I'm getting mad, but it's just that my voice is raised because I'm passionate about what I'm speaking about. Saying that I'm mad when I'm not, in turn just gets me mad because I was being passionate. My brother does this. He gets louder and louder to the point of almost yelling. Just an FYI, and because you deserve to know, the account you responded to just copied pasted this person's comment. When people pronounce espresso as espresso, not sure why it bothers me so much. I used to do this, but simply because I didn't know better. One day, somebody pointed it out to me, and I instantly and permanently corrected myself. Mine is especially as especially. How do you feel about second as in 60 of them in a minute pronounced senkenti? Frustrated instead of frustrated. Ugh. People with gross feet who wear flip-flops like there's nothing wrong. Oh, there's a lot wrong. I'm laughing at this lol. There's a lot wrong. Men should never wear flip-flops outside of the beach pool, but if you're going to do this then for God's sake please clip your toenails. I'm not sure who told you that exposing your dirt-filled talons to the rest of the world is an acceptable look, but it's not. When people use ellipses at the end of a message. My ex was really bad for using them anytime she was upset to be more dramatic, and anytime I see them in a text it infuriates me. Also, when people post an activity they've just done onto Facebook like saying they voted, or just posting everything onto Facebook, it bugs me too. What are people supposed to post on Facebook in your opinion? When someone steps out of public transport or a building and stops just outside the door and grabs a phone or something. Somehow this happens to me a lot when someone just steps out of a train and decides to open Google Maps just outside the doors blocking every one's path. This to happen to me when walking into a building. I'll walk into a store behind someone and they will just stop right inside the door. Auto-tune. I treat it like a plague that's ravaging the music industry and I probably won't stop thinking this, but I do know that my opinion is really unpopular and it gets me into more arguments than I would like. Okay, but that auto-tuned Michael Rosen video though. Comedic purposes I love auto-tune, it's just music that relies on it to sound good that bothers me. My legs deciding to introduce me to new ways they can hurt. I'm 16, generic problems with rotating hips, but my dad has sciatica and got surgery and my pain has started to cause my left knee joint to swell numb, etc. It happened couple times. It's been a week since it last happened, but I definitely need to see a document. It annoys me, for sure. Older people asking me to help them with technology, especially when they work with me and should have learned as became necessary for their jobs. This is spot on. It was kind of cute, like 15 years ago to be computer illiterate. There is no excuse anymore. They are just being lazy. Companies can't barely dumb these things down anymore. People who spell turret as turrent. I just have no understanding as to why this misspelling is as common as it is. I've never met someone who pronounces it that way. The extra N isn't anywhere near the E or T on the keyboard, so it's not an easy accident, and it even gets a helpful red squiggly line underneath it to tell you that you've spelled it wrong. People who put their phone on speaker in the middle of a public place. Their voice is like 10x louder than everyone else's, so I can hear everything. Why? I frequently speak on the phone to someone who does this and it drives me bonkers. If I have any idea they are around other people, I will immediately get off the phone. I do not understand it. Parents who act like their children are the second coming of Jesus Christ incarnate and refuse to see that they are less than average to average at best. Also, people who believe that children are the most important thing in the world and that having them is a hugely important life accomplishment. A Nobel or Pulitzer is an accomplishment. Anyone can pop out a baby. When people say a dice, when they mean a singular die. Or refer to their license in plural. When did you get your license? I've had them for 3 years. Sounds like they are telling you about their lice. You are the answer to this question. Wait, what? I think it doesn't work like this. A group of tourists who hijack a photo point as if it was their own private property. Click, check. Oh, I need another one. Check. Oh, another pose. Check. One more for Instagram. I absolutely hate these kind of tourists. I live near DC and we see this a lot of the time here. When someone asks what my profession is, and I tell them I'm a heavy equipment mechanic, then their next statement is, oh, I have this going on with my car. What do you think it could be? Did I ask you about the rash on my testicles when you told me you were a nurse, Susan? You want professional advice? Go pay for professional advice.